Okay, so I am back again. So this video is essentially just going to be a full indoor season recap for 2025, and spoiler alerts, it was kind of a letdown of a season, but I've at least taken away some valuable lessons that I can sort of share with you in this video. So yeah, I'd finished my last meet and then I'd entered into a meet that was in, I think it was like, was it 13 days? It might have been less. It might have been like 8 days after. I think it was 8 days. Yeah, it was the next Saturday. I'd like competed on the Friday, and it was then the following Saturday. So yeah, I was just trying to like build a lot of fatigue. So I'd sort of taken some rest. I then did a session on, I want to say it was Tuesday. I did the session. I did this kind of session on Tuesday, got ready, and then Thursday was sort of like a little kind of shakeout type day. We were doing some like power tests in class, so I did some like vertical jumps, some like, I can't even remember all of the tests that we did. I could probably like figure it out if I pulled up the sheet, but I can't really be bothered doing that. But the main one was like vertical jump. I hadn't really done that in a while, and I was actually jumping really well. I estimated it to be about a 10-foot touch, maybe slightly less, maybe it was like 9/11, I really don't know, because the Vertec wasn't really like, it wasn't put up in terms of like heights, it was kind of based off your like standing reach, which I kind of like cheated, and I think this ended up being like a 36 with like a cheated reach, or maybe it was higher than 36, it might have been like 38 with the cheated reach, but yeah, and then we did these like 3 steps, and they were kind of trash because the floor was really slippy. It had like salt on it because people were like walking in from outside with their like outside shoes and making the floor dirty. So then I wasn't really able to jump off an approach, but my knee was kind of cooked anyway, so I shouldn't have been doing that. But as you know, I'm kind of I'm too impulsive, and I make rash decisions to just like, I make like very self-destructive decisions sometimes that I need to like really kind of check myself and not do, but that's just the way life goes sometimes, I guess. So yeah, then the meet was on the Saturday, so I took Friday as like a complete rest day. Like the jumps and the warm-ups that we did as part of my class acted as like the shakeout, and then this was the meet. So it was about a 2.5 hours, maybe like 2 hours 20-minute drive. I ate food, and I took my caffeine actually, like when I ate my breakfast in the car, had like a banana, some cereal, some milk, and yeah, that's the first time I've taken caffeine like that far out from the meet. I think I was like a solid like 2.5 hours, so I was feeling really like amped up when I got there. Although I maybe would have tried to ingest it like slightly later on potentially. I think that maybe would have worked, because I felt like it was not necessarily like fully wearing off, but I felt like, you know, I went through my warm-up feeling good, and then I got to like the starts and they just didn't really feel as good, and then the caffeine sort of didn't feel like it was affecting me as much. But then I went and did like lifts after the race, and the caffeine kind of came back. I think it was like, you know, public gym environment, you're kind of hyped up, and I then was lifting like really well. This was like after the race, these lifts that you're seeing now. But yeah, a review of the second race of the season. I think I finished 12th overall out of like, I want to say there was like 103 entered, or it was like 89 or something, I can't quite remember. But yeah, it was like 12th overall. I was 4 places off, you know, making it to the final. There was like 2 guys that scratched from the final as well, which was kind of annoying, because maybe I could have like stayed and talked my way into like another race. But it is what it is. I think overall, reviewing the race, my reaction time was sort of the big problem to start with. I think I reacted maybe like 400 or 500 slower than what the leader did, and that was sort of like my downfall. Like if I'd had a better reaction, I would have made it into the final and got on another race, and ultimately just been in a better position. And then as well, towards the end of the race, because I wasn't really in the place that I would like to be, I was then sort of like dipping for the line too early, and that kind of like messed up my technique a little bit. And I think with those like 2 things, I think I probably could have ran like a 7.08 or 7.07 maybe. That's like the potential, maybe at the upper end like a 7.05, but it is what it is. I think it was 7:15 in the end, so not a terrible time. At least, you know, 500ths faster than the race where I like false started. So that's nice, but yeah, not really ideal, not where again I would want to really be by the second race of my year, like slower than last year. But it's always, it's hard to compare. What my coaches once said was, you're not the same athlete you were, last year. There's like things that have went on the past year. You've gotten older. You are just in a different position, so you can't really always compare yourself to where you were in the past. And I think that's a very wise thing that my coach told me. So yeah, I was then, after that, I was really kind of hyped up and motivated, because I was like, right, I kind of know the areas I need to work on, like reaction time. That was like a big thing. I was like, I need to really focus in on improving my reaction time, and that will do me well for the next race. So my next race was going to be, or was the it was the Toronto Indoor National Championship. So I went to go and stay with some family members that live in Toronto, and then they took me to the track in the morning. Very nice of them. And they also took me out afterwards for some food and everything, so that was really nice. Just good to see them in general. Nice vibes. And then I was now in the kind of preparatory phase for that. So I had I think it ended up being 2.5 weeks roughly was the prep time. Actually, it might have been longer. It might have been 3 weeks potentially. Now, my big issue, I think what would have been better would have just been doing more competitions. But my issue with that is it's I'm sort of in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York, and it's very expensive for me to go to a lot of these meets, to rent a car to go and drive. There is a club track team that I could have joined. I kind of found that out at the race that I was at, that second race. But I didn't really know that beforehand, and it was I'm halfway through indoor season as it is, so I was there's no point in doing that. But I think it would have served me better. I think a big issue with my training here is just the quality of reps sprint wise. I'm not hitting the intensities that I need to, and that's where indoors really kind of helps out a lot. And the reason I'm not hitting these intensities is because my shape just isn't really great. Lifts look good, everything looks good, but I just don't have the recovery that I need, because I've not really built that capacity up in the months prior to this, right? I sort of rushed things. I was really stupid. I made mistakes. I kind of own up to my mistakes. I'm kind of accountable for them. But yeah, there was I'll kind of talk about this briefly, but I thought that John didn't want to coach me as well for a little bit. So John Evans, THP Strength, I thought he kind of didn't want to coach me anymore, and I was down about that for a good few weeks. I was damn, he's not, he doesn't really like me anymore. He said something in one of his podcasts about thinning the herd of elite guys, and I'm not elite. I wouldn't count myself as elite, but John's trained me for a long time, and I thought he was maybe talking about me and he didn't want to coach me anymore. But that wasn't the case. We sorted it out a few weeks later, and I was very happy, because I look up to John a lot. I've been watching his content since 2018. I've really kind of absorbed a lot of what he said. I take a lot of what he says as gospel as well. Obviously, there's some things I would sort of probably disagree with him about, especially in the past, but I feel we probably now more align a lot more. And I just believe in the work that he does. I kind of am a big believer in what he does. I'll always defend if someone's oh, you shouldn't be lifting weights, which I've had some people comment in my videos, but I really believe in weights. I was running really well when I was lifting heavy. And there's a time and a place as well, and John knows this. He knows how to program. It's just kind of, I think it was just a case of, so he wasn't really messaging me back, and then I kind of was okay, I don't think he wants to, so I just took a step back. And yeah, it was just sort of a miscommunication. But as I say, we've sorted it out now, and we're on a sort of path to getting ready for the summer. As I say, I kind of believe in what John programs. I'm bought into it, and I'm ready for outdoors now. But I need to, as I say, focus on fixing my little injuries, which I guess I'll get to that at the end of the video, which is coming up soon. But yeah, so prep was going well. So this was my little shakeout session. I did these sprints. So I think Tuesday's session was the 30 meter blocks. I think I I managed to kind of like snag a pair of blocks that were left out, because as I mentioned in last video, I don't really have access to blocks, but I did manage to get them for this, the session that I did before this one. And then I ran really well in that one, so I was like, right, things are looking good. Although it was like the Gill Athletics blocks, and they're kind of like a different angle. I want to say it's like the 10-degree jumps instead of, well, I think all blocks are like 10-degree jumps, but it's like 30, 40, 50 instead of 35, 45, 55, which is the typical one. And that kind of annoys me that blocks aren't standardized enough. Like, why are they doing that to us? I hate when I go to a meet and the blocks just aren't, you know, the same as what I train on. It should all just be standardized. It's really annoying, but that's just me. Like, that's just a mini rant. I'm gonna get back to it. So yeah, I was jumping really well in the shakeout, and I touched, I think, 10 foot on the dot. I was close to 10 foot 1. I think I could definitely touch 10 foot 1 healthy though, because as I say, my knees cooked and I was just trying to like jump through it because I thought I could, and you know, I'm not invincible, as I found out. So yeah, then Canadian Championships, I made it to like the C final or something like that. I think they had like three finals. I barely scraped through. I ran 7:14, which was good enough for like 23rd or 24th place. So I was kind of like, damn, that's kind of rubbish. The caffeine that I took, it just didn't really hit. And then I go ahead and drop another 7:14 in the C final. Again, they held us in set for like a long time, like it was a good 3 seconds. I've never been held in a set for that long. So I think that did kind of like throw me off a little bit, but that's just, you know, everyone in that race had the same cards dealt to them, and others did better than me. So, you know, hats off to them obviously, but I just didn't really bring my A game, and I think it is just a case of like quality of training has not been good, and quality of competitions as well. I've just not really done enough competitions to get into a good shape as well, and a lot of it's to do with just being an idiot when it comes to training, which, as I say, I hold myself accountable. I take the blame for my mistakes. You know, you take your losses and you move on and try and be better, you know, learn from your mistakes. That's probably the best advice that I can give anyone that's looking to become the best athlete they can, is learn from your mistakes and don't think that you can, you know, don't think you're invincible, don't think you can train through something, because you can't.